Hey folks, turn 5 is complete. We're about at the midpoint of this battle, and forces are pretty much heavily engaged on all fronts. There was no skirmish combat during the strategic phase. As I said before, down there at the farm, both forces involved, and there's about 4 divisions worth of troops down there fighting it out all together, have minimal skirmish capability, so there was no damage done from the skirmish combat taking place. Nor was there any more changes in orders. We can start off up here. Initiative was rolled. Davout got it over Tuchkov. Game-wise, Davout has a nice solid +3 on the initiative, and Tuchkov has a 0. So you can see the advantage the French have in this battle in terms of initiative. Well, the French got the initiative again. They chose to go first. And as you can see up here on the heights, the main heights, the French have advanced yet again. They're up there in formation with the 1st Division of Infantry. They're trying to encircle the Russian defenders. As you can see over here, they do have a column of French troops deployed there. They're trying to encircle the Russians. Line formations all throughout. In response to this, the Russian grenadiers did advance back up to the heights and formed line formation. So they're getting into action, folks. This artillery battery continues to hammer the advancing French. This one battalion in particular has taken some good amount of damage. This battalion right here and this battalion and this part of this one did engage in some musketry, so there's a little damage going on there. Yeah, so that's the situation. This battery of guns is worth mentioning because it is part of the 2nd Division for the French, which is attacking this side of the woods, the opposite side, the other objective. But it did lay down some fire on the only eligible target at this time, which is this battalion of Russian grenadiers, and it actually has been hammering them with some effective fire as well. As you can see, they've taken some damage and are now at 3 CV. Not very good. Anyway, that's the situation. It's still relatively up in the air here on the heights, except I would say the French do have an advantage. They have some reserve troops back here yet to climb the hill. And their guns are heading up the hill as well. I'm sure they'll get into combat in the next turn. We'll see what happens. There's the objective right there, that little dot. But it's still up in the air, folks. We'll see what happens. You're looking at the middle of the battlefield, which is the other part of these heights that are an objective that the 2nd Infantry Division of French are trying to capture. And it's being defended currently by the Russian Cavalry Division and part of I believe it's the 1st Russian Infantry Division, the one that was coming up that road. If you remember, I've mentioned it numerous times. They are dispatched to defend this location as well as the farm area, so they're kind of stretching themselves thin here. But there was a lot of fighting here in the middle, as you can expect. The French cavalry were ordered to take out the Russian cavalry, and the Russian cavalry are ordered to defend these heights until they get further support. Well, that's what's going on, and there was some more losses this turn, in fact. The Russians didn't come out on top of that. They have their 1st Cuirassier regiment has been routed. It's broken, as well as this unit of Hussar. So the Russian cavalry are down to a single regiment holding this defensive position, and it's right there, that unit of Cuirassier. They're fresh, they're at full strength, so we'll see what they can do. And one of the reasons why these cavalry were defeated, up here, there was some charging and counter-charging and opportunity charges going on. And one of the things that knocked these cuirassiers out of action was behind this little cloud of smoke, there is a regiment of light infantry, French light infantry, that put down some pretty heavy fire on the cuirassiers as they were attempting to engage the French dragoons. Right there on the right, and unfortunately the cuirassiers were just cut down. It was terrible. The French had countered that charge with their dragoons and these hussars, which were at very low strength. But if those cuirassiers were not defeated, the cavalry of the French were ready to repel them if they could. I don't know. Never happened. Yeah, so that's the situation there. The French have definitely got the advantage here. In fact, looking at this situation, we can see that the Russians, the only troops they have in the area assigned to defend this objective is this Cuirassier regiment, this battalion, this battalion and column over here, and this battery of guns. And these are all from the 1st Musketeer Division. And yeah, they're heading into position now. At this point, the Russians still hold these heights, but it is definitely contested. The French do have their entire cavalry division still intact, although greatly reduced in strength. This unit of Hussar, it's down to 1 CV, which is very brittle. This unit of Hussar way in the back has been sitting here after its earlier defeat, and it's also at 1 CV. Dragoons are at 3 CV, medium cavalry. Still effective as a fighting force. And they're squared off against these cuirassiers at the moment. And on the other side of the heights here, there is some more French Hussar, which are at full strength. So the French cavalry is doing their job. They're taking out the Russian cavalry. And the rest of these units are French, part of the 2nd Infantry Division, moving up these heights, again, with the objective to take and hold this objective, those heights. So that's the situation, folks. It's heating up here in the middle. French have a little edge. We'll see if the Russians can kind of consolidate some of their forces, get some of these infantry up here, and retain control of this part of the heights. And of course, here all the way to the Russian right, we have the farm area, which is still held by the Russians, but as you can see by all the smoke, it is brutal. The 1st, and I believe it's the 4th Infantry Divisions of the Russians, the 3rd or 4th, I think it's the 4th. I'm not sure what the number actually is. But they're the 2 divisions defending this position here. And they're squared off against the Saxon Division and one of the French divisions that was deployed back here. Again, the skirmish combat was not effective. The Saxons have orders to support the French over here, and they're supporting them very well. In fact, they've broken through up here in this hedge line with 2 of their battalions. See if I can focus in just a little bit there. Right there. You can see where the 2 battalions have broken through the hedge line there. They did manage to break the unit that was deployed here of Russians, conscripts. They were broken and routed. And right here next to them, this position here is actually held by some converged grenadiers from the Russian 1st Musketeer Division, which is holding its own. It's down to 2 CV. It's been shot at by these Saxon guns for quite a while, but the cover's helping them a great deal. So yeah, this unit here has been broken and will be removed from the table. Also in the middle, you can see a lot of stuff going on. We've got the road occupied by 2 Russian battalions. The Saxons are behind them at this point. Both of these units are down to 1 and 2 CV apiece, respectively. That's not good. And ahead of them, more Saxons. Behind these clouds, there's Saxons, and there is more French infantry. These 2 right here are fresh, actually. So they're in trouble. Those Russians are in trouble losing that position. There's also some Saxons right here, which are down to, I think that's 2 CV. So there's a lot of combat going on over here. Not much musketry. They're kind of far apart at this point. But as we look over further to the right, there is a battalion here of Russians that's fresh. And over here, this battalion here is having a duel with this battalion. And they're both at, I think, 2 CV apiece. So it's even-handed there. So there's plenty of fighting in the middle. The Russians do have a fresh battalion right here. And as I said before, right here as well, already deployed in line, covering this hedge line. The French are coming down pretty heavy, though. They have some fresh troops coming at the Russians. This would be the French 2nd wave hitting in here. That's this unit, this unit, this unit, and this unit. Well, not this one. That's actually part of the 1st wave. But yeah, they're getting in there. So they got fresh troops coming in. I don't know if the Russians are going to be able to hold this position for too long, actually, if you look at it. They don't have any more reserves coming in, so it's going to be a tough position for the Russians to hold. And yeah, if you look at what's going on here, it's going to be tough for the Russians as well. To be expected. This was not going to be an easy task for the Russians. Of course, there's our 2 broken units, which I have to remove from the table, Hussar and Cuirassier. And over here, there is a broken unit of French. I don't think I mentioned that. But that unit was also broken. And that was broken earlier by the Cuirassiers, which are now broken themselves. They did manage to get an attack on these guys. They were not able to form square soon enough. and they were taken out. They lost the combat and were automatically broken. And they were right in this area right here, if I remember correctly. So they were the first ones to greet the Russian cavalry from the 2nd Infantry Division. So that's the situation, folks. This situation is heating up, and it's going to be interesting in the next turn. As you can see, there's a lot going on and a lot of close combat about to happen very shortly. Okay, folks, that's turn 5. Turn 6 is coming up. Let's see what happens. Okay, folks, turn 6 is done. I got that out of the way. A lot of fighting going up here in the hill. Started off with the strategic part of the turn. There was some skirmishing, which the French and Saxons had the advantage on, but were unable to capitalize. They couldn't allocate that hit on the enemy Russians, so that was nullified. There was no change in orders on either side, but there was a morale test taken by the 3rd Infantry Division for the Russians. That was the one that was stationed up here in the beginning of the battle with 3 battalions and some guns. They finally broke with their 2nd morale test, and there they are. And they're totally out of the game. They can't rally, so they're gone, along with their leader. So all that's left holding this farm area is the 1st Division, which is all musketeers, all conscripts, except for 1 unit, 1 battalion of grenadiers, which they had. Not very strong, not very many of them, but there they are. They're holding their own. But we'll get into that. As far as initiative, the Russians actually got it, so they decided to go first, which was probably a good idea. What they did with that is they basically shored up their defenses up here, moved up to the ridge line, greet the French at close range. They exchanged musketry and close-range cannon fire with the French, who are also advancing up this hill steadily. They lost a cannon battery, unfortunately, which did some good work in this battle. It did a lot of casualties on the advancing French, but unfortunately it's met its demise. That's about it so far on this end. So this could go either way. Both sides have taken quite a bit of casualties and are still standing. So next turn or two should decide what's going to happen here. One side will break through, I'm sure. So that's that. Middle of the battlefield, the 2nd objective, which is right here, the other part of the heights that the cavalry's been fighting viciously over. It did have some very decisive moments, excuse me, to be expected with cavalry actions. As you can see, there's some missing cuirassiers. They are, in fact, broken. The Russians lost their last unit of cavalry, folks, right there. And that was broken from charging into a square formed up of light infantry who were veterans. And they were able to form their square under a sudden charge. And that was pretty much due to their training and the fact that they were veterans. I don't think the Russians expected that. Yep, they held them off. Both commanders, the division commander of the 2nd French Division, as well as the Russian cavalry commander, Uvarov, an inspirational fellow, if you remember. He also joined the cuirassiers in that last charge. But unfortunately, they were broken completely. So that was it for them. They were gone. One thing good that did happen for the Russians is they were able to break the dragoons that were positioned up in this position, if you remember, in the earlier part of the previous turn. They were taken out with close-range cannon fire, and I believe some musketry. I'm not sure. But yeah, they broke and fled, and they're now running for their lives way over there on the other side of the table. So I got to take them off the table. Other than that, the French kind of consolidated their forces. They got their full-strength hussars here, and their 2 weaker hussar units, one here, and one way over here on the other side, kind of pulled back, and they're pretty much under the orders of holding their positions because their orders have been achieved. The Russian cavalry were defeated, so they fall back on hold orders. So they're going to need some new orders. We'll see what happens with them. In the meantime, the 2nd Division of French Infantry, so far it's trotting its way up these heights here. Like I said, the veteran light infantry, which is behind this smoke cloud, along with their leader. You can zoom in, you might be able to see them there. The division commanders right in there with them, formed up in square. They held their ground. They fended off the cuirassiers' last little charge. And that 1 cavalry unit right there is proxying as Uvarov himself in this battle. So he's still in the battle, but for all intents and purposes, he's no longer in the battle. His troops are gone. So that's what's going on over here, folks. And as always, over by the farm, things are heating up as usual. But I think there's going to be a little lull shortly. The first wave of the French lines are finally starting to get to the point where they got to pull back. There's like this unit, this unit, and this unit all have 1 CV left each, so they're pretty much done for the battle. The Russians are holding the position well. This battalion of Russians did hop this hedge, though, just to get in a range of these advancing French, and did do some damage by doing that. But now they're out exposed, and the French are kind of taking advantage of that. And they do have a flank shot here if they don't get back behind the hedge. They're at 4 CV. Over here on the other side, there's another battalion yet that's down to 1 CV, so they're taking bad damage. The French are in a good, strong position, actually, in this farm area, simply because they have a second wave of units coming up to assault yet, and I believe that's at least 3 battalions. This unit is fresh. That's Saxon. This unit and this unit are both fresh. They're French infantry. Yeah, so they're doing pretty good. The Saxons, once again in this battle, are doing pretty good as well. Even though they're not exactly the best troops in the French army. I think they're all rated as conscripts, actually. But they're doing pretty good. One interesting thing is, here's the 1st Musketeer Division's commander. He's right behind this last unit up here, which is actually veterans. The rest of this division of Russians are all conscript. This one was kind of an understrength battalion of veterans. They're basically converged grenadiers. And they've been holding that position there for a long time now. They've only got 1 CV left, and they're basically fending off these troops on this side, which includes these cannon, which finally the cannon got close range with them and finally can do some damage to them. They're kind of like a little rear guard at the moment. As this division tries to shore up its defenses. It's got a fresh battalion here coming up off the road to meet these Saxons in the field. Yeah, tactically it's very interesting, but it's going to be hard for the Russians, I think, to hold on to this another couple turns due to that second wave of French, concentrated over here mostly. But they still have some forces over here with the Saxons. This unit in particular is fresh, and this one's at 4 CV. But we'll see what happens. This area right here will be very interesting to see what happens. So that's the battle so far, folks. And as I said, both sides took a lot of losses. So far, there won't be any morale checks, I don't believe, yet. I think the French and the Russian, what's left of the Russians anyway, are still okay in terms of the troop strengths, so they won't have to make any division morale checks yet. But that could change quite quickly. Look forward to seeing the French cavalry get issued new orders, perhaps, and see what they do with them. But for all intents and purposes, they met their objective, so let's see what they can do next. And yeah, the Russians are a little bit hampered now, especially in this area, to defend it, since they don't have their cavalry anymore at all. Yeah, so this is going to be interesting. It's really developing, my friends. Davout, where are you? Look at the advancing columns of the 2nd French Infantry Division. Alright, folks, we're going to slip on over to turn 7 and see what happens. Stay tuned. Folks, finished turn 7. Let's see what happened. Went through the strategic part of the turn. The French and Saxons down at the farm area did manage to do some damage to one of the Russian units with skirmish combat. The one up here closest in the field. That took a hit from skirmish combat. Also, the French attempted to change the orders of their cavalry up to a maneuver order. Let's see where they are. They're over here right now. I have a hussar up here in column moving in this direction. They failed to get the orders through. What they're attempting to do right now is to maneuver their cavalry, what's left of them, up and around this woods and get into a flanking position on the grenadiers over here, at which point their orders should change to either attack this objective, the heights, or attack what's left of the grenadiers up here on the hill for the Russians. So we'll see if that happens next turn, because this turn it did not. So The French cavalry remains on the hill holding their position. Yeah, and that was about it for the turn. Initiative was rolled, and it was won by the Russians. Once again, they opted to go first. If we take a look over here, we'll see what happened. Basically, the Russians were up in a nice line position up here, doing some musketry exchange with the French. And it looks like both sides have just worn each other down to nothing. I mean, all these units and battalions up here have taken major damage. There's a lot of 1 CVs and 2 CVs in there. None of the French broke. The French are smart enough to pull some of their units back out of the combat. But unfortunately for the Russians, 3 of their battalions of grenadiers did break. So they're on their way off the tabletop at this point, folks. Those 3 are broken or removed from the battle. That leaves them with 2 battalions remaining, holding on to the heights, both of which are right here. We have a battalion in line exchanging some musketry against this column, in which they're winning. And this other battalion up here, which moved from a reserve position up next to the just abandoned cannon. That's what the smoke is. And they have 3 CV left. They're in line, and they're exchanging fire with this battalion opposite them that only has 1 CV. Unfortunately, there was a melee up here, and the French won that. And they have a fresh battalion here that just broke through on the flank of these grenadiers. So it's not good at this point for the Russians. They might be losing the heights very quickly in the next turn. We'll see what happens. But yeah, that's the situation, folks. French are breaking through. However, Duvau's 1st Division is well worn. We'll see if they can take this objective. In the meantime, up here in the middle, on the second portion of the heights, this objective area here, the Russians still retain control, as they do with the first objective marker on the other opposite side of the woods. If you remember previously, the Russian cavalry was defeated. They're no longer in the battle. However, the only thing they have here is a couple battalions of conscript quality troops from the 1st Division of Musketeers, along with their battery of guns. And that's all that remains holding on to this objective of the battlefield. And the 2nd Corps, or the 2nd Division, Infantry Division of French, are moving forward up on the heights here at this point, and there is some musketry fire exchange going on. And it looks like both sides have taken some hits. I think the French do have an advantage. The first wave is moving forward. The second wave is in the back here, moving forward. And they do have a battalion back here in column moving up as well. And right there is the divisional commander. Davout actually is over here if you want to know where he is. He's up on that hill. And there again is the cavalry waiting for fresh orders with their division commander. Let's see what's going on over by the farm now. As I said earlier, one of the units, this one in particular, specifically, actually, did take some skirmish damage. It took a hit from skirmish combat. It was also charged by 2 Saxon battalions this turn, one of which was defeated and has since retreated back here. It's crazy, but yeah, that's what happened. A lot of it has to do with this hedge the Saxons were forced to cross and the Russians were defending. It wasn't a flank attack. This battalion up here behind the smoke, let's zoom in there and see what I'm talking about. That battalion right there with the white chips next to it, they indicate disorder in the game, was halted from musketry fire from this battalion. Unfortunately for the Russians and the Saxon unit, they're both at 3 CV, so they both took some losses from musketry and close combat. And that was the situation there. Once again, the Russian Grenadier, Converged Grenadier Battalion, still holds the hedge line with 1 CV left. Some of the Saxons did pull back, and there's a fresh one here. Well, it's not fresh anymore. It's down to 2 CV. It does have the Saxon Divisional Commander attached, and the Saxon battery of guns are trying to get rid of these grenadiers holding the hedge. And outside of that, the Russians do have 2 remaining battalions right here and here. This one's at 4 CV. This one's at 1. They are holding the hedges, which lead to the farm area where the objective is located. There is some shifting of lines here as the first initial wave of French troops start to pull back out of the combat. They haven't taken any more losses this turn. And the second wave forces, which are fresh, are moving up into position to assault this hedge line. Perhaps in the next turn or two, we'll see that going on. So that's the situation down here at the farm. So folks, that's turn 7. It looks pretty risky for the Russians at this point. They are losing up in this area, but the French are on the verge of breaking as well. They have a lot of units that are worn down. It looks like the French are in a good, strong position to take this objective, but at the same time, there is a small group of Russians here that are holding on. They're not in too bad a shape. Tuchkov himself is right there. The farm, it's yet to be told. Like I said, there's still 4 battalions of Russians holding on down there, going against now the second wave of French and Saxons. One other thing to note is that the Russian Grenadier Division will have to take a divisional morale test, an MF morale test in the next turn for losing these 3 battalions. And also we'll see if the French can get their cavalry with fresh orders and see what they do. Okay, folks, next turn 8 is coming up.